Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a
Thank you
huge
very much
privilege
for having me.
to have someone not only who's our youngest guest, but probably also our most successful guest so far. We are thrilled to have you.
I don't know about that, but that is a very nice to say. I'm very excited to be here and to talk to just any humans, honestly.
That's awesome. Before we get stuck into the meat of this and hear more about you, Mr. MacArthur has specifically requested to play a short, sweet, but wonderful game with you.
Okay, I'm nervous.
Take it away.
What I thought, Bash, was that obviously we're all huge Horrible Histories fans. So I've invented a game called Horrible Bash the Bash. And what happens is I bash two horrible things together and you have to tell me what they are, right? And I've got 3 rounds. So here's round number 1. I'm picking up 2 horrible things. I'm going to bash them together. You've got to tell me what they are. People at home, you can write in and guess as well. Here we go.
Okay.
Ready? And again. Any thoughts?
I'm going to go with, like, just going to shut the window, like a wooden box and a bag of rice or something. There's something rattling.
Very close. It's actually a disgusting jar full of coins, full of grubby coins, and some horrible cordial.
Nice. It's a good sound.
Are you saving up for a holiday, Ed?
Yes. Yes. My plan is to travel to the living room. Okay, next one. Here we go. Are you ready? Sound number 2.
Okay. 2 pairs of shoes. 2 shoes.
Very close. It's a horrible boot. And a whale's tooth, which I'm not even sure is legal, but it's in the house. It's a huge whale's tooth, which is made of calcium. Horrible tooth. And finally, third sound. Well done, Bash. Here we go. Last one.
Okay. Something small. I don't know. Something metal, like a key and...
Bullseye. And what's the other thing?
I don't know. I think I saw a pencil.
Close. It's a horrible bit of bazooka. Bazooka that Peru. Listen.
Wow.
Well done, Bash. Well played.
That was brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All I'll say to everyone is, it's a sarong! Thanks for having me. Bye, Bash. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Mr. MacArthur. Great to have you on again.
I have no idea what just happened.
Thanks for Mr. MacArthur.
He's amazing.
Let's cut to it. Obviously, we could give you all sorts of praising introductions. I'd love to hear from you. Like, how did you get into what you're doing? I know you started very young. You were a child actor. You're now an adult actor. You're 18. You're out of school. Like, how did you get into it? What was the journey that's taken you this far?
Yeah. Well, I didn't always know I wanted to be an actor necessarily, but I always loved talking to people and connecting with people and dressing up when I was younger, and I'd always ask for costumes for my birthday and make costumes. And then I remember very vividly going to Gifford Circus, which I'm not sure if anyone out there's been to, but it's just the most amazing place. It's a circus and there's a clown called Tweedy. And he used to, unlike normal theatre where there's a curtain and you go up and you watch the world and then at the interval the curtain goes down, Gifford Circus, and I guess all circuses, just make you part of the world. It's very immersive. So when you arrive, there's people on stilts, and I remember Tweedy used to go around with like an iron and pretend it was a pet. Anyway, it was just the most amazing place. And after being part of that world and going dressed in a top hat to Gifford Circus many a time, I found out that acting was a job, and it just blew my mind that all those things were a profession. And it just baffles me that anyone doesn't want to do that. But yeah, as soon as I could, I was doing magic tricks, putting on shows, and then yeah, I was 7 when I started sort of professionally acting, and that was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And then from then on, just I've been doing everything I can to keep acting, really.
How do you combine school and acting?
That's a very good question. So I'm very dyslexic, and I'm very lucky that I had a very supportive prep school. They realized, well, I guess it's the way that they operate, but they realized with me that if you put someone's passion as their goal and you put the things that they're doing in school as enablers and as stepping stones towards their passion, rather than you must do your GCSEs and then you can go and be an actor, that it would mean I was much more motivated to do schoolwork. So things like reading plays and poetry or studying history are all so valuable as an actor, as resources. And so I was kind of taught that education was part of helping me become a better actor rather than two separate things. And then I was very lucky that one of the sets I was on in Italy, and I believe the tutor who was teaching me out there, Hugh, is watching. So hi, Hugh. But from Oppidan, you guys, I was going to ask you, is it Oppidan or is it Oppidan?
Yeah, you got it. Second one.
Oppidan, okay. From Oppidan, that's kind of where I was introduced to you guys. And I used to have tutors on set, and kind of just, I'm very dyslexic and trying to balance the two in and out of school. But yeah, it's a tricky one to do, but I'm lucky I've got very supportive parents and went to very supportive schools. So they helped a lot.
Yeah, I know Doula's watching, but we love you, Doula.
Big up.
So a brief shout out. We've had a message from Miss Swales, Nicola Swales, who's one of your press.
No way. Yes.
And says, great to see you doing so well. So that's really nice.
Oh, thank you so much. We did drama together, and she directed a production of Into the Woods, which is absolutely marvelous, with your sister in it, with Evie in it.
I saw it.
Yeah. No, that was top-notch stuff. I love that.
I think it's a real testament to you, because you make it sound easier than I know it's been. And like balancing starting a career when you're still in education is a really difficult thing. And I think it's, you know, there'll be a lot of kids listening who are in a hurry to start a career before they finish school. What would your advice be for those who are kind of desperate to get on with it, whether it's in acting or any walk of life? What would your advice be for those people kind of keen to make a start early?
Yeah. Well, there's not necessarily a pamphlet or a manual, unfortunately, with these things. And I am by no means an expert, but speaking from my own experience, with anything, I guess, if you're really passionate about it, that's really infectious. And I think you can only have that if you really love what you're doing. So kind of just really throw yourself into every opportunity you get. And it tends to be that the more opportunities you take, the more opportunities that present themselves. So more generally, that would be my advice, but more kind of specific to acting, and kind of the times we're in now. I know it's weird being in isolation, and to a lot of people that can feel like a setback or that things are being put on pause. But I just really encourage anyone who's passionate about acting or film in general, just to, there's so many great resources. Reading plays, in fact, I've just finished reading Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, which I'd highly recommend. Absolutely amazing. And there's some great autobiographies. Again, this literally was, I'd say, life-changing. It's Michael Caine's autobiography. You can see I've got lots of post-it notes for different notes, but books around acting and plays I find really useful. There's some amazing National Theatre Lives on at the moment. My favourite production I ever saw was, or one of, was Hamlet, and it was the, I've just blanked on his name, but anyway, it's out there.
Nice.
It's an amazing production. But there's lots of great resources. And then also, finally, sorry, just to add, there's a website called Masterclass, and they have lots of people, and I find them all interesting. I watched Hans Zimmer's one, who's writes film scores, and that was fascinating, because I think often elements, it can feel hard to like practice acting when you're not actually in a production, and I think there's lots of elements outside of acting that affect how you act. So with Hans Zimmer and the music he writes, if you're in a scene where it's a really close shot of you, and you know there's going to be really intense music, the amount you have to do to portray the emotion is so much more refined than, say, a shot of you really wide in a field where it's windy and there's no sound. So kind of just researching everything around everything that's happening is always kind of useful.
I think what you're a great example of, Bash, but you're too modest to say, is that while you are a handsome and very talented young man, and we'll stop there,
Wow.
The key
Thank you.
thing is that you're working hard at your craft, and it doesn't matter whether it's acting or whatever it is. It's the best advice you can give everyone listening, because it doesn't just fall in your lap. This stuff has not just happened because you've been lucky. Yeah, you've had some luck, I'm sure, but like if you're continuing to invest and to like educate yourself, particularly at a time like this when actors around the world are out of work, then you're doing the right thing. I've got another question, which is, you know, you're very young to be dealing with a career that involves a great deal of resilience and where there's a lot of stuff thrown back in your face, a lot of criticism, you know, good, bad reviews, auditions you don't get, setbacks, all that kind of stuff. How do you deal with that? And like, do you have a kind of coping mechanism to push you forward in times when you're working less?
Yeah, in fact, that's a really interesting one. And I think resilience is something that's not necessarily spoken about that much, or if it is, it doesn't feel like it's something that can necessarily be taught. And to some extent, I don't think it can be. I mean, I was very fortunate, I didn't feel fortunate at the time, but the first, after I just finished doing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I went to audition for Oliver in London. And I remember going to an audition, and in musical theatre, there's usually 20 rounds, and a dancing, a singing round, an acting round. It's a really long and quite often grueling process. And there were 100 people that turned up for the audition, and they came out at the end and read out 5 names, and I wasn't any of them. And I was just absolutely gutted. But got up the next morning and went, what can I do to make sure the next time I audition for it, I do get it? And my dancing just was awful. I've got 2 left feet. And I just started working on dancing and knew that if my dancing was up to scratch, that it wouldn't hold me back. I was never going to be a professional dancer. So I guess my response to that is that I genuinely feel every time I go for an audition, I'm not necessarily just trying to get the part, but I'm trying to learn something from that experience. And I think every time that there's a wall, if you reevaluate what you're doing and reassess how you can do it better, then it wasn't a setback, it was a step forward. And if you're always growing, then that's always a good thing. So that's kind of my thing around resilience and setbacks, as it were.
I mean, I've been watching some of your dancing on TikTok, Bash, and you have both the right and the left foot. TikTok is something that people have been doing lots of in isolation, and it's a good way to practice your craft. Give us your view on TikTok for those listening.
TikTok is amazing. I love it. I spent far too much time on TikTok. I take my TikToks really seriously, just to put it out there. So it's like a full production. So I'll research my favorite scenes from films or TV series and find them, learn them, and then raid my parents' wardrobes of any costumes, create characters, anything I can find in the house, and then film it multiple times from multiple angles, and then sit and edit it all together. But it's a really great way of learning. It's kind of like a small test and a small run through of what it's like filming, because whilst the cameras are bigger and the sets are bigger, ultimately it's the same thing, which is you're trying to portray and tell a story. And I think if you can do that on a small scale, there's no reason you can't do it on the bigger scale. So I think TikTok's great. I'm a big TikTok fan.
Very quick fire question. What's your TikTok name?
Sebastian Croft, my name. Please go follow me. Thank you.
Bash is misleading. It's Sebastian Croft.
Yeah.
I've got a great question here from Jemima, which ties in with something I wanted to ask you. We're all here because we believe in mentoring and mentorship and the role of mentors, so we don't need to mention that anymore. Have you had key mentors? Have you had key role models who have brought you through? That's a question from Jemima.
Hi, Jemima. Thank you very much. That's a great question. In fact...
Also, apologies, Jemima, it's for Michael, aged 8, not for Jemima.
Michael, sorry. Hi, Michael. Very good question, Michael. So this is a playbill from A Twelfth Night, which I have signed, which had Mark Rylance and Stephen Fry in it. And one of the actors in it is called Paul Shahidi. And he has been a big mentor of mine through kind of acting. And I auditioned for a Shakespeare play when I must have been 11, and it was a Trevor Nunn production. And I didn't know anything about Shakespeare. And to be honest, I'd found it quite dry in English, is the word I'd use. And I remember him kind of teaching me about it, and he was teaching me iambic pentameter. And I went into the house and had some tea. I went upstairs and then I had a pee. And that was how he taught iambic pentameter. But he was a great mentor. But I've been lucky to have lots of people. And I think often little bits of wisdom come from all areas of life. I've had some amazing Oppidan tutors. As I've said, I'm very dyslexic, and I had very little belief in my academic abilities. And it really was, without meaning to blow smoke, it really was Oppidan that kind of changed that mentality. It was when I was doing my GCSEs, and I had some great mentors then. And I still, even though I'm no longer in education, I still have Oppidan tutoring, because I believe it's really important to have not only mentors, but people to kind of remind you things that you should know and keep helping you grow and get outside information. Because whilst family and friends are great, it's always good to have the kind of outsider voice.
Bash, I guess you're most well known in terms of film for your horrible history. The first question is, can you just tell us what it's like to be on a production like that? And then my slightly selfish question is, what was it like working with Nick Frost? Because I love Hot Fuzz so much.
Horrible Histories was just the most incredible experience. Film and theatre are quite different, and I'd done bits of film, but Horrible Histories was the first film I'd done where I was on it for a long chunk of time. And theatre is quite a kind of, I'd say it's more of a bigger picture thing. You become part of an ensemble and you run something all the way through, and you find the nuance through repetition, and then you put it on, and it's got quite an immediate response, and you can alter what you're doing depending on how the audience react to it. Whereas something like film, and especially Horrible Histories, you're really zooming into specific scenes, and it's often shot non-sequentially. So the first scene you might be doing on the first day, which is with people you've never met before, might be the last scene where you're meant to be all like jolly and best mates. And the last scene when you're meant, like, when you spent 3 months with people, your absolute best mates, you might have to pretend you're really like cold and, awkward. And that's a real challenge, which I had never come across in theatre. But on Horrible Histories, it was just an absolute joy. And we were so lucky that we got such an incredible cast of people and of celebrities. And we had a historian on set, so that was great. I just spent my whole time asking him. I think he got a bit bored of me at the end, just like asking him random history facts. But it was great. And there's things like press junkets, which I'd never come across of. So basically you sit in usually a hotel room. Mine was with Nick Frost, which was impossible because he is just the funniest man ever. Like, he just makes everything funny. Anyway, we did these interviews together, and we were in a hotel room for 2 days, and every 5 minutes a new person from a magazine or a radio will come in and ask you some questions, and then they go and the next person comes in straight away. So it's like a whole machine around releasing a film, which I never knew existed, and a whole part of the craft and art that I never knew you had to do. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I got to go some really cool places. We were filming in Bulgaria, I think, and we were shooting on the set next to Sylvester Stallone, and it was Rambo 5, but because the 5 was a V, we got told it was this new film called Rambov. But no, yeah, it was an amazing experience, and Nick Frost is the biggest legend ever.
We've had a very good question from Manahal, who asked, and I want a concrete answer from you. I want a soundbite for this, not a long one. What makes good acting?
Manahal, that is a very, very, very difficult and very good question. Speaking from experience, I think good acting is when you really feel and you really truly believe, and you're being true to the text and you're being true to the story that you're telling. And anything more than that or anything less than that is a lie, and is therefore lying to the audience, and therefore they won't believe it. I think from experience, and also from seeing actors that I really respect and look up to, when you feel it and you're nowhere else, you're just in the moment, for me that's really good acting. And I think all the work around that and everything else we do that feels like fluff is purely just to connect and to get that feeling and that genuine sense that when you say those words, it's the first time you've thought them, and also a real honest feeling. And I think being honest is the hardest thing to do, but also the kind of most rewarding out of acting.
Nice. Well,
and that is, can I just say that is like the hardest question I think I've ever been asked. So
Manahal, you are a legend for asking that question. You're going to have to be fairly honest for this round. This is our quickfire round. And I've basically drawn, there's nothing sort of weird about it. I've just drawn questions that people have asked. And Tara has just asked the first one. So 5 questions. It's either or, you're going to have to give an answer. Ready? Okay.
I'm not sure.
Theatre or film?
Theatre.
Favorite role you've ever had?
Yuri, which is in a superhero film called Dampier that I just finished filming.
Your favorite TV show?
Modern Family.
Modern Family.
Yeah, it's just so good.
Jon Snow or Sansa Stark?
Jon Snow, only because I met him and he was lovely.
And last one, which concludes the interview nicely. What would be your dream role if you could have anyone today?
Well, I have 2 answers to that. The first one is I've always wanted to play a spy or a superhero of some kind. So I'd love to play like a James Bond or any of the Marvel superheroes as kind of a part. But really, the honest answer to that is there's not really a single part. I'd love to just play a range of characters and tell lots of different stories over, hopefully, my career. If it's long, we'll have lots of different parts and different cool stories. And I'd rather be nominated for any kind of award 20 times than win once, because I think consistently putting in lots of different and a difference, the right word, performances is much more rewarding than just a specific role. So hopefully a kind of very diverse range of different characters would be the dream through theatre and film.
We will keep our fingers crossed for you, Bash.
Thank you very much.
Started early, and I have no doubt that you will be singing and dancing long past the end of my career, that's for sure. So also, last thing to mention on here, because I feel like she deserves it, we had a shout out request for Amelia, who's a huge fan of Horrible Histories. Perhaps you could say hi.
Amelia, hi, lovely to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you keep washing your hands and keep working hard.
Now,
we have a game. What's the game?
I've heard about this.
Yeah, Bash, we nearly forgot there for a second. This is very important. I hope you have.
I was off the hook.
I'm not.
I think I do.
I'm not plugging M&S. They just do really good digestives.
Other brands are available.
So the sublime to the ridiculous. Could everyone, if you haven't already, grab your biscuit from your kitchen and then bring it back to where you're watching. You're going to have a go at beating Sebastian Croft at Biscuit Face, a future James Bond.
To be clear, on our leaderboard, we've only had one guest so far has completed this. My advice would be to use half the biscuit, because you guys are both using enormous biscuits.
Okay.
And we've got Lamorna Ash on 32. Walter basically pipped me by quite a long way yesterday with 15 seconds. So I think it's my go today to compete, and Walter, you can time us.
I'll time it. Okay. You go.
Whereabouts does it start?
It starts on your forehead. It ends in your mouth. If you drop it, you can pick it up and try again. No touch.
Okay, everyone ready? Remember, if you have a photo or have a video, whatever, tag us on whatever channel you want, and we will send a pack of biscuits if you beat Bash. So, Bash, Hen, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, you have 30 seconds, off you go. $15 seconds. Henry! Go on, Bash! Yeah! Fantastic. Henry pips you, but I think you may have beaten an Olympic gold medalist and author. So, what a day for you, right?
Huge day. What can I say? I'd like to thank my parents.
It's so kind to be on the show. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you guys so much for having me. It was an absolute joy. And hi to everyone at home, and sending lots of love.
Thank you so much. We'll speak very soon. Have a great week.
Speak soon.
Bye,
everyone.